find the love within. I came back to let you know, got a thing for you, and I won't let go. My friends wonder what is wrong with me. Am I in a daze from your love, you see?
Our next guests have sold over 100 million albums and are one of the most iconic bands in music. Here to perform The Chain, please welcome Fleetwood Mac.
Listen to the wind blow, watch the sun rise. Run in the shadows, damn your love, damn your lies. And if you don't love me now, you will never love me again. I can still hear you saying you would never break the chain. And if you don't love me now, you will never love me again. I can still hear you saying you would never break the chain. Everybody join in, start a love tree, love tree. People all over the world now, join in, love ride, start a love tree.
Hello, everybody out there, and welcome to the Chapters Wrap with Steve Vaccaro. My name is Robby Robinson. I'm the music director for a zillion years for Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. Those of you who watch Chapters Wrap regularly may know me as the music director and co-host of Reach Out with Ray and Steve. Now, today we are going to have a super special show because we are going to celebrate the life and times, the artistry of one of the most brilliant musicians, one of the most brilliant keyboard players on the planet. And his name is Mr. Ricky Peterson. Now, this young man has played with Prince. He plays with Fleetwood Mac as we speak. He played with Billy Joel. Hold it. I'm just going to stop myself because I could probably tell you more people he hasn't played with. There's probably fewer of those because he's played with everybody. He's absolutely brilliant. He's one of the baddest musicians on the planet. So right now, let's welcome Mr. Ricky Peterson and Steve Vaccaro. Come on in, Jen.
Hey, Robbie. Great intro.
Robbie. Oh, man.
Wow, man. I was like, wow. You're talking about me, man?
Hey,
that's you, brother.
I was downtown Minnesota and look who I bumped into.
I guess.
All of a sudden.
Yeah, I remembered him from the concert the other night. So an amazing guy, just like you guys. So you guys do such amazing work musically, but also connecting with so many people, Robbie. Thank you for giving us a little intro.
That's great.
Well, Ricky is a Hammond artist, as am I, and so we're Ham Fam brothers. But this cat, man, Ricky he's an amazing player. He's one of the few musicians I know that can authentically wear a hat and play straight ahead jazz. He's a jazz player. He's a rock player. He's an R&B player. He's a funk player. It's very rare the musician that can wear all those hats authentically, and he does.
And he makes.
I love you.
And he makes a mean cup of coffee too. Let me tell you.
That's a good cup of coffee. Yeah, we're all hyped up on coffee.
That's right. Downtown. But Rob, before we get into Ricky, you are a superstar in itself. But you had a great week. First of all, it was your mom's birthday, so God bless.
Happy birthday, Mom.
God bless her because
92 years old yesterday. Yes.
Without her, there's no Robby Robinson.
Amen. There's no question. And I actually know Ricky's story and he could probably relate to this. My mom started me in music. She started me with piano lessons. She sacrificed big time just so I could have a music career, and I owe everything to her.
You know what? I agree, only because my mother did the same thing, and her name was Jeannie. We always said that we were lucky enough to get some of Jeannie's genes.
Ah, there we go.
You know, but Barb, happy birthday to you.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
And you had another great night last night. Before we even say anything, let's go back to the video, because I know you didn't even sleep last night.
I know.
You're not wearing any Dodger gear, but we know what's
I
in
got
your
a Dodger hat on here.
Oh, there we go. Let's check out what happened last night.
Reyes fires, swing and a drive, deep left field. This is way back. Walk him off, Chris Taylor.
Man, oh, what a game. That game, I thought I was going to have a heart attack about 12 times. It was like
it was such a long game, man. I was like, wow, we watched every move too, and it was a good game, boy. It was but it was 4 hours.
I know. And it was dramatic from start to finish.
You betcha. It was great.
And I know. Did you think Albert Pujols was going to hit one in the bottom of the night there?
Man, I thought that was going to be a Kirk Gibson Hollywood moment again, but it didn't happen.
Wow. Was that you in the crowd jumping up? I don't know. Were you home watching? What were you doing?
I was home last night watching. I thought about going to the game, but it's such a busy week. I'm actually on tour with Frankie. We're playing tonight, 10 minutes from where I am right now in 10 minutes from my house in Thousand Oaks. And then tomorrow we go to, where do we go to? Vegas, Las Vegas tomorrow night, and Saturday night in Palm Springs. So
beautiful.
Wow. So we all met. I mean, you know Ricky for a long time. We know each other, but we met in Minnesota here at Mystic Lake. I want to thank you for that night. It was an unbelievable night.
Yeah,
and I didn't realize Ricky was sitting in a row behind me. And until you came up and you announced him, Frankie announced him, he stood up, and then we became fast friends. Now I'm sitting in the studio here.
Gorgeous studio you got there, brother.
Thank you, man. I love it. I've been here for about 25 odd years. Like this is one of the first studios built in Minnesota back in 1952 by Bruce Swedien, of all people.
Is that, well, for those of you who are watching and who don't know the name Bruce Swedien is one of the legendary, iconic engineers in the history of the music business. He did all of the Michael Jackson stuff, all of Quincy Jones stuff, but he also, interestingly enough, he was an engineer on Big Girls Don't Cry way back.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's great news, man. That's very funny. So what happened throughout the years in this studio, my mother and father actually worked in the studio when he built it. He actually built it out of a movie theater. And it's been here ever since the 50s. And they did commercials like, Grain Belt and Twin City Federal and all sorts of local chapters of different brews and all that kind of thing. Ham's beer commercials, the beer refreshing and whatever. But they did all those commercials with my father doing the arranging and my mother singing them. And a guy by the name of Dick Link was in the land of sky blue water. Remember that? I'm sorry, I don't know if we can use any of that, but that was pretty cool. So it's very nostalgic for all of us. We have pictures of those guys down the hallway and back in the 50s. So
that's fantastic, man.
So Robby, talk about your relationship, your friendship with Ricky, because I know we have a couple of pictures. It goes back a long time, and you guys are Ham brothers. So share with our viewers a little bit about that relationship.
Well, the Ham fam, we like to call them, is brotherhood, sisterhood of Hammond artists.
Right.
And if you play the Hammond organ, you have an immediate love affair with Hammond. And Hammond is good about having all the musicians, all the Hammond players around the world connected, keeping us connected. And I feel kinship to Ricky through that Ham fam thing.
Yeah.
But this guy, he plays, like I said, he plays jazz, he plays soul, he plays classical, he plays R&B, he plays pop, he plays Fleetwood Mac, and it's just amazing. He is a very rare musician. Not only is he brilliant, but he's brilliant in a lot of ways. So
I'm trying to keep up with you, man.
But it's interesting because you're both highly talented musicians, but you've chosen to work with Frankie Valli for over 44 years,
Right.
which is a brilliant career. And Ricky has done his own thing, but he's performed with so many great artists. It's interesting.
Yeah.
well, you never know what do you think, Ricky? It's a funny.
I like you. I played with David for almost 35 years.
Yeah.
David Sanborn.
Yes.
And off and on with different bands, of course, in the meantime. But David was my longevity guy that we did so much great stuff from the mid 80s through 2000 and, 2012. That's when I started with Stevie Nicks and doing that. So, but he was, that was my learning experience and being in New York and hanging out with the cats. It was a little green boy from Minneapolis and New York City going, everybody's going like this,
Yeah.
You better play or go home.
Well, I think we have a little clip of David performing with you there too. Carmine, let's run that clip.
And now let's listen to a classic standard and the theme song to the drama 空から降る一億の星, starring Sama Akashia. Here's Grammy Award-winning saxophone player David Sanborn performing Smile.
Told me when we met that your life was awful.
Unbelievable.
That's kicking it, man. Woo!
Yeah, I knew Robbie'd like that, man, because he loves the big band stuff, and we both kind of have that groove for that thing, man. That blues we loved, right?
Dave, so David Sanborn there, you've had this long relationship with David Sanborn. I'm from the same area as David, and played with some of the same musicians that he got started with, but he's a little bit older than me, so I kind of missed him in the scene. He left to go to New York when I was still in St. Louis.
Right.
But there's a St. Louis sound, I've always contended, at least from back then, as there is a Minneapolis sound I know you guys are going to talk about. But it's got that bluesy, it's urban, yet it's a mix between urban and rural, kind of bluesy, jazzy.
Exactly right, man. It's actually very true. And especially St. Louis, man. That the St. Louis blues, baby. Yeah.
So tell us about David Sanborn, because you do have that long relationship, and what a talent he is.
You know what? He was, of course, the unmistakable sound of David Sanborn is. You could pick him out of a crowd a million miles away. So I've been when I first started with David, it was in 1985 when he and Bob James put out a record called Double Vision, and David was putting another band together, and my friend Tommy LaPuma and I were working together with Ben Sidran at the time, and he's introduced me to David. He said, "David, you need to go see this kid." This is Tommy and Ben talking. So, and David just said, "Okay, well, I'll do it. Have him send me what he's done or whatever." So I sent him something. Anyways, we made a demo, and by that time, David was, he was so on fire, man. He was like opening for Al Jarreau, and he was at that time. After I had joined him and we had done this, he had gotten to the point where he was filling 10,000 seat arenas by himself.
Wow.
So, I mean, it was a love affair, man, for a long, long time. It was like a married couple.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
For many, many years with him, man. So,
well, he's a brilliant talent and a great voice on the saxophone. And
my gosh,
it's a rare thing. I mean, it's a hand. You can name on one or possibly two hands the kind of jazz artists that can fill that many seats.
Exactly right, man.
No doubt.
And the pop stuff too.
Yes.
Sorry, just to interrupt. Sorry, I mean, with David Bowie and all, and James Taylor, man, all those great songs. And you go, wow, that saxophone it's unmistakable.
Right.
Unmistakable.
Yeah, we work with back in New York. We work with Richie Canada.
Oh yeah,
and
sure,
from Billy Joel's band, and he does a thing in the Bitter Club in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Each Monday, and he's been in our performance of Fat Boy.
Bitter End,
the Bitter End, yes, and he does great work.
Sure.
And he's a big Yankee fan too. So
there you go.
But I know, Robbie, you have a gig tonight. I
gotta go play. You guys can play around. I gotta go make money.
Man, well, go have a ball with those guys. What a great band you have there, man, and what you do is incredible. I love watching you the other night with Frankie and running that program, man. And all the guys in the band were so fantastic, man.
Yeah,
especially you. I love you, man.
You're like the maestro back there. You got everybody dancing, getting everybody pumped up and psyched. It was an amazing night. I want to thank you so very much. Thank you for introducing me to this guy. Yeah, and this has been great. Robbie, thank you so much.
Well, enjoy the life and times of Ricky Peterson.
That's right.
Thank you, brother.
God bless. Go
later,
Dodgers.
Man.
Dodgers. There we go. That's the great Robby Robinson, musical director, keyboardist for Frankie Valli, but he's also our musical director of Reach Out, Ray and Steve. And Ricky, talk about your journey to get to this point in life. You mentioned your parents earlier, but we're sitting in this great studio. I can feel the vibe. I can feel the history in here.
Oh my gosh.
Just walk through. There's a lot of history.
It's got a lot of history, man. And as you know, I was talking about, well, from my starting standpoint, my parents, like I said, they were musicians, and they did. My dad had a big band, and my mom was a singer in the band, and they came to town here, and they would do gigs, and my father would be the producer with the big band, and it was mostly that jazz kind of vibe. So they did commercials, they did all sorts of stuff. So our house was full of music our whole life.
Wow.
Man. So it was to the point where my siblings and I talk about, when we'd go outside and play, we'd ask our friends, we'd go, well, what does your dad play? So it's like, we don't, we didn't know anything else.
Right.
So we grew up with that music, and then rehearsals in the basement at 8 a.m, with these guys, and having him doing demos for commercials that he would come down here and do. And so we were living that scene. So I remember that my mom, I was sitting down at the piano downstairs. I think I was all of 8 years old or 9 years old or something like that. And I would just by ear playing, I played Help by the Beatles.
Okay. Okay.
And she said, you want to take piano lessons? And I went, sure. Oh, there you go. So in first grade, I started taking piano lessons, classical piano lessons at Holy Angels, of all places.
Oh, okay.
From the nuns from Holy Angels, who taught me. Well, I have to give it to them, because what they taught me, because I wasn't always a great reader. I was lazy, but he learned to read. Boy, you learn to read fast with those guys. Anyways, but what really they taught me was like all the theory and stuff like that. So as we progressed throughout those years and got later on, the rock and roll came into play, and I loved rock and roll, and then it started becoming the progressive rock and roll in the mid '70s, and playing the Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and Yes, and kind of the getting into Chick Corea, and then getting into Herbie and all that kind of stuff. So the early '70s was really the milestone for me to go, oh wow, Joe Zawinul, all that kind of stuff. So I loved all that kind of music. So that's where I kind of grew up playing the pop, and then going into different genres of music, and then just kind of, I don't know, progressing, I guess, or degressing, who knows.
But it's funny, in your career, it looks like you did some work with Donny Osmond too.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And he did something with his sister. I'm a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll. Are you a little bit jazz? Are you a little bit rock and roll? What are you?
Well, you know what? It's a good question, because I think I'm more of a rock and roll R&B guy than anything. I think that's more my life stands a little bit. I love the jazz, the jazz. I love the jazz, but I don't consider myself like a bebop player, But I consider myself as I can contend with some other, some vibes, some good blues, bebop, whatever. That like the big band with WDR, we did a lot of funk stuff, and they're not used to doing that. So it was a match, it was a really fun match, So we were doing different stuff. Anyways, that's kind of where I lie, even though Robbie gives me the kudos about playing jazz and stuff like that. I love it. Trust me, I'm probably not as good as Robbie playing jazz, that's for sure. But
it's just an amazing. We're sitting here in your studio downtown Minneapolis. You're born and raised in Minnesota. What is the Minneapolis music scene like? What is that? We alluded to the St. Louis scene, but what is it here? See, our viewers out there outside of Minnesota kind of get a little feeling for.
You know what? Around here, it's quite eclectic, actually. There's a lot of jazz here, and I think there's more nowadays, of course, because of the pandemic and everything. Everything get a little shut down, but everybody, as you know, was in the studios doing their own music, and when you're stuck in somewhere, what do you got? What else are you going to do?
Right.
For us guys anyway, because you couldn't go flip burgers anywhere because everything was closed. So we make music, but the Minnesota scene has always been one of the top dogs in music, in R&B, pop. I played all through the '70s in these clubs on the Strip, playing pop music, of course, because that's what we had to do. And if you were, and disco came in, so what did we have to do then? Play disco. But anyways, we did that. But then we were able to advance into some other cool stuff where people go, oh, well, let's go hear them, because they're not doing that. They're not doing the disco stuff. And we would go into, more things like the Pages, and we were able to do David Sanborn songs. We were able to do different things and learning all this cool stuff that was actually coming out in the '80s for the '80s. And in Minnesota, everybody flocked to see it because it was such a scene. Such a scene back then in the '80s up to the mid '90s, where it kind of tapers off a little bit, right? Because everybody's getting older now, and now there's new generations of people coming in.
Right.
And they were all more on a rock side when the alternative music came in, the alternative rock and rolls, the Seattle sound and all that kind of stuff. So, but there's so many great musicians here, man. But like I said, now it's so diverse, but there's so many different kinds of music that come out of here. But the funk is what really,
and you do this thing, about. Funky Friday, and
my brother's got a podcast called Music on the Run, and for he just did Funk Friday '82.
Okay.
So every Friday he's put out a little minute piece.
Okay.
That is so cool that we all, I've introduced him to a bunch of my friends that I've been on the road with. So they're happy to come and play, because this was during the pandemic.
Right. Yeah.
So everybody was going, yes, when they would set up in their house,
right.
They would go, yeah, let's play. So we would do this, and we would do it together, and came up with a lot of the stuff. And I think the ones that you're going to see right now were more of the Minneapolis sound guys. We had with the Prince guys and Paul with the Prince guys. So we all which we'll talk about later. We all, had contingency with Prince. Is that a word?
Yeah, there we go. There we go. But let's funkify this a little bit.
Yeah, all
Let's
right,
check it out. Come on, roll those tapes. Unbelievable. Very
That's
good,
my little
man.
brother Paul, too. He put all those things together. Yeah,
Yes,
brother
yes.
Paul.
And
Yeah.
music is good to the soul. And I think that
Thank you, man.
you mentioned the pandemic. We all got hit with all kinds of things, and
Right.
everybody got hurt by it. Musicians got hurt by it. But to see it right in the studio, how you kept music alive through the years, what does music mean to you? And how does that connect with people that may be suffering, that may be challenged with life, but your goal is to put a smile on their face, right?
Well, that's the whole thing, man. You said it all right there. That's why we do it. We're here to make people happy and to to do what we do. Our God's gift is to sit here and play music. I mean, we were lucky enough to get that gift, and we think about that every day, man.
Right.
And we thank the good Lord. Thank you guys
Right.
that we're able to have a talent that we can utilize and give to other people, and maybe teach somebody, how to feel better.
Right.
And maybe, do the whole thing. And I think that's probably what you do also. I think that's what.
Yeah.
you're doing.
We're going to get into that because as a psychologist,
Right.
I often show pictures of
Right.
things. I'm going to show you a couple pictures.
I'd love it.
And you're going to tell me a little story about it.
Okay.
All right?
Sure.
You good with that?
Sure. I'm fine with
All
that.
right.
Man.
Let's start off. We're going to take you on. This is your life, Ricky.
All right.
All right.
I love it.
We're going to go with your good partner and friend, Ben here. Sidron here. Let's talk about him a little bit.
Ben Sidron. Well, he was introduced by a good friend of ours by the name of David Rifkin. And David Rifkin is a producer from town here. And they call him David Z. He goes by the name of David Z, who worked a lot with Prince too. But David was doing a record with Ben and introduced him to my brother Billy. And Billy and he became fast friends. And they would come out and see us play because we would go out and we'd be playing in all the clubs here in town. And those guys were jazz guys, so they would do their jazz thing. But when they bring him out, Ben just went like that. And when he saw me play, he just went, wow, well, he's got a great, kind of a funk concept. This is all before smooth jazz or any of that kind of stuff. And Ben was kind of a guy who liked groove-oriented funk stuff, man, kind of like a Mose Allison storyteller vibe that he does. And he's a psychologist, or he's not a psychologist. He's a philosophy. He's
Okay.
a doctor of philosophy, and
Okay.
he's that the doctor is in, man.
The
So
doctor's in there.
so we love him for that because he's taught us a lot. But he took me under his wing and he said, "Listen, man, let's go and do some of this music." And I ended up doing a few records with him. I lived with my brother Billy at the time, and we started just writing things in our house.
Mhm.
And we had a little 4-track, we had the TAC 4-track, and we'd go
Okay.
in there and make a little music. It's right when the DX7 came out, so we
Mhm.
were thrilled, But I had all our equipment in there, and we ended up coming here to this studio before I had this room,
Wow.
and did one of his first funk records here.
Mhm.
And I think it was on the other side or something like that. I can't remember quite the name of the record, but anyways, so Ben introduced me to our good friend Tommy LaPuma,
Okay.
and Tommy LaPuma was an ace for me who signed me to Warner Brothers back in 1987,
Wow.
88, and I did my first record with him and Ben producing, and so Ben was my catalyst, and to meet, Tommy, and Tommy was a catalyst of me to meet David Sanborn. And
Wow.
at that time, I was playing with David Sanborn because of Tommy, because of Ben, and so that went on like that. So it's all kind of word of mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how Ben came into my life, and
Wow.
and he's been one of my mentors forever.
That
So-
is a beautiful story, and I think it goes back. We wanted to start off with that because it seemed
Yeah.
like your relationship with him is really tight,
Yeah,
really close, and you're all
and we're
family.
always, and still am.
Right.
Still are.
So, are you a joker or a smoker or a midnight toker? What are you?
I'm all the above.
Okay, but
Well-
your friend Steve Miller too
Yeah.
is all of the above. And talk about your relationship with Steve Miller.
Oh boy! Well, I'll tell you what. We did a record with Ben Sidran producing, called. It was his last record. They were friends, by the way.
Mhm.
They went to college together in
Mhm.
Madison, I believe. And so, needless to say, Steve Miller had a record deal with Capitol Records for
Mhm.
years, and he had to do one more record, and they were going, yeah, he's washed up, and whatever you want to do, just do a record. We need it, so give it to us. So we did a jazz record.
Oh,
We did a
okay.
blues record with Steve Miller
Oh, wow.
playing the guitar. Steve wasn't on the road at all. He was done. He was
Right.
like, I'm done with this, man, because it was kind of over,
Mhm.
But then we got to know Steve really well.
Right.
And Steve and I, he's such a great guy. And we did. I mean, it's total down to earth.
It seems like you have similar personalities.
We do,
I
man.
never met him, but meeting you, I could see Steve
He-
from a distance, right?
Exactly. He's a funny guy, man. We had a lot of great laughs together, and a lot of great music together. But he's a great blues player. First of all, that's what where he comes from. So, and that's where we all come from. So, I have to say that when we did that first record, he wanted to go out and Ben set it up so we would go do these colleges and play a couple of dates and stuff like that. And this was like
wow.
1988.
Mhm.
And 1988, we did some colleges, and when people got gist of what was going on, and this is just the beginning of classic rock music. So classic rock, he was the epitome of the
Yeah.
classic rock from the early 70s,
That's
man,
right.
with the Joker and Fly Like an Eagle. and
Yeah.
So-
everything.
we did the record, the blues record, the jazz record. The kids didn't want to hear that. They knew exactly who Steve Miller was.
Right.
They went, play the Joker,
Yeah.
Well, we ended up doing all that, and of course now he felt it. So what he did is he got all his masters back from Capitol Records and put out the best of Steve Miller,
Wow.
and it took off like gangbusters. And we were on the road for 5 years after that.
Wow.
I had other stuff to do after that, but we were on the road together with my two brothers, Billy and Paul,
Wow.
and Ben Sidran,
Wow.
and Gordy Knudsen, who's a great drummer from here, and saxophone player by the name of Bobby Malik.
Okay.
And with Ben, so we were all doing this together, man, with Steve Miller, and he just blew up, because of the classic
Wow.
rock. So it was
That's
great.
awesome.
Yeah,
Back in the 80s, I was a big Police fan, and Sting.
Oh,
You did
sure.
some work with Sting. I mean,
did.
that must be an amazing experience.
Yeah, you know what? He's he's another one of those great guys. English boy, he's an Englishman in New York, and that's where I met him. And I actually met him here. His drummer at the time, Vinny Colaiuta, who I think you know that name,
Yes,
is
yes.
one of the most fabulous drummers in the world. He's a dear friend of mine, has played on all my records and played on everybody's record too, but he's like the baddest cat on the planet. Played with Sting, with
Wow.
Gordy. We call him Gordy. Anyways, Sting, I met, first of all, here in town. I went to see my friend, and we all hung out at the bar. Hung out at the bar, and I ended up taking him out to a couple of places in town here, and we all just kind of drove together, me, Sting, and his guitar player, and me, Vinny, Sting, and his guitar player.
Wow.
So we had a ball. Anyways, playing with him, there's a few other people that are on that list too that we did. We were the house band for this thing in New York City at Madison Square Garden and Boston Gardens, and we did a couple of dates for Billboard.
Okay.
I think the guy's name was, I can't remember. He was a guy who passed away, and he was one of the writers for Billboard magazine. And his last name was White, and he was a wonderful writer, and everybody loved him, and he made everybody sound great. So we were the house band with Steve Jordan, Waddy Wachtel, and
he's with Stevie Nicks.
Yes, absolutely.
And
so these are all
the
friends that I grew up with in New York, because we were all kind of a conglomerate of guys that all knew each other, that played on the records, David's records, and all sorts of stuff. So we were lucky enough to do that, and Steve Jordan put this band together, said, "This is it. And this is Danny Korchmeyer and all these great musicians, man, that are on stage." Where Sting came and played with us, he played a couple of songs to pay tribute to. I'm going to say Mr. White. I'm going to just call him Mr. White, anyways. And so, along with Billy Joel. Along with Roger Waters, along with all these great musicians who I got pictures with and got to hang with, and all that kind of stuff.
James Taylor
was there, man.
How was it being around James Taylor for a little bit?
Oh my gosh, man. He's, these guys are all salt of the earth people.
Yeah.
Even though they're big, huge stars, man, you would never know. They're not, foo-foo divas, man. These guys are all great people. So
that's it. How about Sergio Mendes?
Sergio Mendes was a Tommy LaPuma, and I produced him.
Okay.
Produced a record for him at Paisley Park.
Wow.
Back in the mid-'90s. And we did about 2 or 3 songs for a record he was doing. And Sergio taught me a lot about Brazilian music and Brazilian food and how to eat and drink.
Wow. Well,
he's just a wonderful cat too.
Well, you definitely got the beat, right?
Oh,
and with the Go-Go's, you really got the beat.
Oh my!
Right?
I got the beat.
There we go. How was it with them?
Well, it was wonderful because we were doing a lot of producing. David Z, I mentioned him before. David Rifkin and I were producing records together, and I was doing a lot of the arranging, and he was doing the production, and we happened to be doing people like Colin Hay, who was the lead singer for the Men at Work,
right?
And the Go-Go's. We did stuff with, throughout the days of Paisley Park, the Go-Go's came through, and we ended up doing like 2 or 3 songs. Fine Young Cannibals.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And we, there was a lot of that stuff going on, especially at Paisley Park, because it was a big deal. Prince was huge, and they loved. Oh my God, we're going to Paisley Park. We're going to record at Paisley Park. And Dave and I kind of ran the joint along with a guy by the name of Tom Tucker.
Okay.
And Tom Tucker was one of the other engineers that did a lot of my records. And I have to mention him because he and I were partners for a long time as far as owning the studios and stuff. So, and he's a little past now, but we miss him. And but that was, the Go-Go's was a part of that scene, man.
Wow.
And that's when George Benson came into that part of that scene too. So it's all eclectically,
Well, George Benson, this is the Chapters Rap Live here. We're sitting here rapping with Ricky Peterson and the amazing career. And we're talking about George Benson now. How was it with George?
Well, again, Tommy LaPuma and I were producing George Benson's record, and the record was called That's Right. And it was a Minneapolis-based funk, Minneapolis sounding record. So he loved it. He loved Prince. Prince and he became fast friends too. But George and I hit it off so much because we love Maui. We've always loved Hawaii, and we talked about that a lot. And I had a place there, he had a place there, and of course we got together there too because he had a studio in Maui.
Wow!
And but George, is one of the guys that I can't tell you or tell you enough about his musicality and how he has taught so many people and how much. I mean, he's one of the most brilliant guitar players on the planet.
Wow.
And I remember him saying, "Well, guitar wasn't my thing. I was a singer." And I'm like, "What? That doesn't seem right because your guitar playing is so effortless and so natural to, and it's just." And it's just like just listening. I was sitting in the same room with George Benson.
Yeah,
We were all like,
that is crazy. That's crazy. And to think you came up in the streets of Minnesota,
man.
and that's great. So two women that are outstanding musicians, Bonnie Raitt and
Yes.
Chaka Khan. Talk about them.
Well, Bonnie, I met when I was a younger guy back in 1970, probably 70, 79, 81 maybe. When she was coming through here, she did a lot of music with a couple of local people here. She was blues. She's a blues girl, man. So
Okay.
there's a lot of blues, and there's a lot of blues in this city. And I'm spacing out the guys' names from here, but Bonnie was very. She loved these people that in Minnesota. So we had a band called the TC Jammers.
Okay.
And it started out with Doug Maynard on vocals, and Doug was just a great guy. He kind of had a Joe Cocker vibe on him.
Okay.
He sounded like Joe Cocker, but he had his own thing. He could harmonize with his own voice.
Wow.
The thing that was harmonizing was so badass.
Wow.
Anyways, here's my language. Anyways, I met Bonnie through these people.
Okay.
And Bonnie and I, and talking about, salt of the earth people, how lucky are we to know these people who are such real humans, man,
Yeah.
and beautiful, that all they want to do is play music and make people feel better, man. That's the whole thing. And to play with her, talk about, wow, her sensibility and musicality is over the top too. So I've been so fortunate, man, playing with these people who have influenced me, and I ended up playing with her for, from 2000, I guess it was 2007 through 2012.
Wow.
And live, did a lot of that stuff with her live, and just we're good friends. We talk very often, and as I do with George and all the people that I tried to keep in touch with. So.
What about Chaka Khan?
Chaka Khan, Paisley Park again, man.
Okay.
I did it with Prince, and Prince was producing a record for her and asked me to help him. And I ended up producing a couple of cuts on her record, which was, I can't for the life of me remember the name of it.
Well, you got such a long list. I mean,
I know
there's a lot.
I'm a knucklehead, man. Well, it's I'm getting older now too, so it's like you start losing your sensibilities. Anyway, this was a great record. It wasn't a popular record, but it was a critically acclaimed.
Okay.
And I did like 2 or 3 songs on there, and I'll try to look it up while we're talking here.
Okay.
And I'll just show you a picture of it so you guys can go on and go, oh, we got to hear that.
But
anyways.
we got to get down to it. There's 2 artists there in the band. Prince. You mentioned Prince. We're sitting down here in Minneapolis. He was everything to everybody here. He will be nationwide. Sir. He played for the Super Bowl. He's an icon, legend. Talk about how that came to be with you and Prince.
Oh, man. Well, that stems from way back in the 70s. So Prince, well, not way back in the 70s. It was late 70s when he started coming out. He was already doing stuff on his own. And check this out. And just to let you know, Tommy LaPuma, my friend, was instrumental in signing Prince to Warner Brothers, the deal to Warner Brothers. So the family just gets smaller and smaller. I mean, the world is so small, man. I mean, it's like, what? Anyways.
That must have been a great day when that came down.
Well, when I was introduced to Prince, and we were just jamming in a place in Edina at this guy by the name of Peppy Willie. Hi, Peppy, wherever you are. And
hey, Pep.
Yep. And he introduced us through another friend of mine, Jimmy Bowman, which was another friend of my father's, one of his best friend's son. Wow. And he and I grew up together. So, but he was in cahoots with Prince somehow. And he said, Ricky, you got to come and play with this kid. You got to hear him. So this is how I met Prince. So we were jamming in his basement, in this basement of Pepe's house. And he had Andre Simone. He had the 2 girls, not Wendy and Lisa were not there yet. Had I can't quite remember everybody. It's so doggone long ago, but it was the first band. It was Des Dickerson and
Okay.
the beginning of the Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, he asked me if I would play with him.
Wow.
And after jamming with him and not really knowing his music, I kind of knew what it entailed a little bit because he was kind of crazy. You know, he was very kind of subdued and just how he is, right?
Right.
And excuse me, he was he had his own way of doing music, and I kind of had my own way of doing music,
Right.
and I knew what it entailed to join his band, and I actually turned him down. I said no. I thank you though, man. I love playing with you, man, but I'm not going to do that. And he kind of was taken aback a little bit. Said, really? And I said, yeah. I'm not going to go up there and do the dances and the thing. I don't do that. I'm more of a jazz player kind of thing. It's kind of my excuse. Anyways, people thought I was nuts for doing that. Anyways,
well, I mean,
we had a ball. We actually had a great time, and he respected my decision. And ever since then, we became friends. When he became hugely popular off of Purple Rain, of course, is when he made all that money and built Paisley Park.
Yeah.
And Paisley Park became this entity where I gravitated to, of course.
Yeah.
And he said, yes, please come in. Please come in. Let's play some music together. And since then, ever since that moment, we were, not best of friends or anything. Right. It's kind of hard to hang with Prince, but.
Well, yeah, I would imagine. But the respect level.
I couldn't dress as good as him ever. So.
Right. Well, you're pretty good.
I got that little fancy little stuff.
There we go. But I mean, when before we get to the band, we're going to talk about Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
When we lost Prince, I mean, how'd that affect you?
I mean, it affected everybody so terrible, man. And I knew, I called all my friends that were in that scene, at Paisley Park, and the people that played with Prince at the time, and I got them all together because I knew that as soon as we found out, of course, that we were devastated to find this out that they found him in the elevator or whatever. And it was devastating, man. I mean, to everyone that had anything to do with him, and we all got together and we had our own little hang. In a small place, and we didn't tell anybody where we were for 2 days, man. And because we knew that the press would be all over the place. Anyways, we all came together as a community, as a musical community that had something to do with Paisley Park or Prince or anything like that. And that was a whole huge thing that was I can't say enough.
Yeah.
It still hurts, man.
Yeah,
It's still people
imagine.
are still freaked out about it, man.
Yeah.
So
And he became super huge, but connected on people on such a level. He played the Super Bowl halftime show a couple years back, and
he sure did.
just really connected. But we started this whole show off with Fleetwood Mac on the Ellen Show,
Yes.
and I'm looking there, and you're right there.
Yeah.
So talk about your relationship with Stevie Nicks, because I've been a Fleetwood Mac fan forever, and obviously a Stevie Nicks fan forever. But you know her. Talk about your rapport with.
Well, I'll
with
tell
her.
you I played with. Let me tell you a real quick story about John Mayer.
Okay. Oh,
So
John Mayer,
I played with John Mayer, with Steve Jordan, and what I did is Steve Jordan was producing a record called Continuum,
Okay.
which is a great record of John's, man. It was my favorite record he's ever done. He's done great, and I love the guy. And but they asked me to come and play on that record, so I played on that record, and I ended up being on tour with John for a year.
Oh wow!
And I left after a year, and after that year, a friend of mine who was playing percussion with him, Lenny Castro, he was going to go play with Stevie, and I said, well, let me ask you, are they looking for a keyboard player? And just because I've always loved Stevie, who wouldn't love Stevie?
Yeah.
Stevie Nicks, for God's sake.
Yeah, I wish I could play keyboard.
Oh my God! Well, she was open to having me come and audition, and I was open to auditioning. I've never auditioned before because I always had I'm lucky enough to have a gig. Sorry, but I wasn't beyond it. I was sure I'd be happy to come and audition for this gig. So when we did that, I got the gig. Thank you. Thank you,
Wow.
Lord. And stars it. Thank you. And we had a ball. And of course, in the band, I knew Waddy Wachtel.
Yeah.
I knew Carlos Rios.
He is so underrated too,
well.
right? Because he could do everything, but he's
plays,
Stevie Nicks'
he's Stevie
right-hand
Nicks'
man, right?
Yeah, yep. He is the musical director and has been for years.
Yep.
He played all that great stuff. You played the rock and roll tune with her. You played everything. So, anyways, Stevie, of course, the reason why I mentioned John is Stevie saw my name on that record and loved that record. It's all she listened to for that whole year of 2006 and 7 and 8. And she realized it was me, and she was freaked out. So we became really good friends. Plus, Stevie's a Yorkie doggy, loves Yorkshire Terriers.
Okay.
And I had 2 of them. My wife and I had 2 Yorkshire Terriers. And of course, right off the bat, they got thick as thieves. They became totally great friends. So I was kind of in the house.
There we go.
After that, and I've been playing with her ever since. Man.
That's amazing. And you played at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
We sure did.
Let's check it out. Amazing video. Let's check this out. Unbelievable. Talk about that night. I mean, when you're Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Stevie Nicks, I mean, sold out crowd, history. I mean,
what a trip that was, man. I mean, are you kidding me? I've never been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame show in my life. But to be able to do that with her, and that's her second time being inducted.
Yes.
Because she did that with Fleetwood Mac also. So she was the first girl to be inducted twice, I believe. Isn't that true?
I think so. I think you're right. Yeah.
Maybe there was only one other one. Maybe it was Linda Ronstadt or something. I can't remember. But anyways, yes. What a trip. I mean, for us to be on that stage, and you have to move around. It's a show. It's a live show. So it's like, whoa. But I thought it was pretty good. We got up there and
when you got did you know you were going to perform with her at this? Or
sure.
Okay,
sure. So when she got the nomination, we were all rooting for her, of course. And when she won, we knew that she was going to perform. So. And we were on the road with Fleetwood Mac at the time when that happened. So we had just started with that.
And talk about Mick Fleetwood, because he's the brains and the genius behind the whole band. They went through their own evolution back in the 60s and the 70s, and Stevie and Lindsey came along, and you had the McVies, and then the evolution of that band is amazing. And talk about Mick Fleetwood.
Well, Mick Fleetwood, of course, I met him because like I mentioned before, we're Hawaiian guys. And we all love Hawaii. But obviously I met Mick through Stevie.
Okay.
And I had met him a few times, and we had talked about trying to do some music together. And we actually did a little recording in Maui as a trio in the studio that George Benson used to check out. I mean, it's such a small world.
Yeah.
George Benson used to own in Lahaina. Anyways, that's where I met him, and we talked about doing some stuff. And he's the spearhead of that band. But Peter Green was the actual guy that put it together. So Peter Green is the guy who said, we can't call it Peter Green Band. We're going to call it Fleetwood Mac because of McVie.
Right.
You know, Fleetwood Mac, and that's how they came to be. And it was a blues band.
Right.
It was a blues band in 66 through or whatever, 67, whatever. And we just did a tribute show after the Fleetwood Mac tour, by the way, you guys. We did a tribute show to Peter Green last February 2020 was one of the last gigs we did right before the pandemic hit. We did it at the Palladium in London.
Okay.
With it's all on a movie, and it's you get to see that. It's beautiful. So I was the MD on that too, by the way. Anyways, Mick and the band, when they got together with Stevie, they were changing. They're changing hands again. I know that Lindsey Buckingham was going to do his own thing.
Right.
So, they brought Stevie in. Of course, she's a great draw for that thing. And as bringing Stevie in, they brought me in too as the keyboard player in the band. So I was able to join the band for that for the last 4 years. So I'm part of that deal, I guess.
That's amazing. I mean, Fleetwood.
I was like, you better pinch me now. I think I'm dreaming, man. So
that's crazy. So when you perform live, how important is that connection to you and the audience to you? Because it's almost like a dance. It's almost like a spiritual connection when the music is good and the people are there.
Well, first of all, when the music's good, it really connects as a spiritual thing. It's like euphoria. And if you're able to actually solo in something and play something from your heart and somebody gets it, man, I guess that's the whole, that's, even though it might be few and far between, it's something that is the most important thing that will ever happen to you in your life. And you actually gave it to somebody else. And if you, when you reach somebody, else, man, with your music, it's spiritual. Trust me.
Yeah, no doubt. Now we're almost out of time, but we have a slew of albums just going to pop up on the screen because you've been involved with so many year after year for decades now. And to sit here today, I mean, what is your goal from this point on in the music world?
Oh man, well, just to keep playing music, of course. It's the only thing I know how to do, really. And I'm right now working with my family a lot. And we have such a great time. We have a couple of different bands that we work with, and of course we're going to go out with Stevie again. But as of right now, I'm working with my brothers, the Ricky Peterson and the Peterson brothers, and that's something that I got to give to you and all you people out there. That's if you get a chance to go check that out, that's a pretty cool record. It's very funky, kind of acoustic, and it's got some pretty good accolades on radio and played all over the place. So anyways, it's one of those things that happened that's very cool. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to keep what my brother calls, we're going to make history. We're making history.
Well,
every
you've
day.
already made history. You're making history.
We're making
and
history.
That's how you get a hold of you. And this is a fabulous studio. We're going to have to do this again.
Well, I love it, man.
Yeah,
I love being with
God
you, brother.
bless, man.
Thank
It
you,
was
man.
a
God bless you,
pleasure,
too.
a blessing. It's almost a dream come true. So thank you so very much,
You're
sir.
welcome, brother. Thank you. I appreciate everybody.
Ricky Peterson.
Enjoy
God
this
bless.
guy. He's a great cat, man. All right.